Hi, guys. Just came across an article about the Georgia elections. I know that is on everybody's mind, so I wanted to take a couple minutes and go over that today. Unfortunately, this article is from Vox. Oh boy, you can tell I'm gonna have some fun with this one. But I use this article because they kind of just get to the point as to what happened, but then also they give a little editorial that I think really highlights a lot of the problems we have today and what we might see in the future as a result of our kind of short term thinking and us turning these political narratives into a religion. So let's dive into it. My face always covers the title there. Okay, buckle up. Democrats signal they are ready to go on stimulus. The Georgia results make more stimmies, much more likely. And this might be the first time you guys have seen this new highlighting thing that Sebastian got for me. This is making it a lot easier. So I'm just going to go through this and go to the points I highlighted because that's, I think, or those are the major talking points that I wanted to go over. But it also means that President-elect Joe Biden's agenda has a much greater chance of being enacted, and that at least parts of his Build Back Better, which, keep in mind, is very consistent with the Great Reset agenda of Klaus, Bigglesworth, and the World Economic Forum, plan may be brought to life. One major likelihood, the second $900 billion stimulus signed by President Donald Trump at the end of 2020 will not be the last. While campaigning for Warnock and Ossoff, probably pronouncing that wrong, in Georgia, Biden said that he will seek to make $2,000 stimulus checks, which were approved by the House and blocked by the Senate, a reality for Americans. If you send, and this is a quote from Biden here, if you send John and the Reverend to Washington, those $2,000 checks will go out the door. My first question is, at what point do we admit, or do the politicians themselves admit, that they are not just figuratively buying votes, but now they are literally buying votes? It's basically vote for us and we'll make sure you get your $2,000. That they're just literally saying, here's money in my hand. If you vote for me, I will give it to you. I don't know. It just, not only does that seem as though it should be illegal, it seems at some point from an ethical standpoint that it would dawn on the politicians themselves that where these words are actually coming out of their mouth that, hey, wait a minute, what am I doing here? And this doesn't sound too good, but I digress. Okay, next thing I wanted to discuss, it's not just checks that could be on the horizon. Aid to struggling state and local governments, which McConnell characterized as blue state bailouts, has been a major sticking point for Republicans. To get the $900 billion stimulus deal done, Democrats removed their ask for state and local help in exchange for Republicans dropping their request for corporate liability shields related to the cerveza sickness. Okay, so bottom line here is what they're saying is it's not just about these stimulus checks, that the blue state bailouts could now be closer to a reality. And again, there are no certainties, just probabilities, but the probabilities that the probability of these blue states being bailed out is far more likely now that the voting has gone this direction in Georgia. I want to go back to a podcast from Peter Schiff. It wasn't his last one, but I think maybe the second to the last one, where he had just an awesome idea or kind of an insight. And his point was if we start allowing the Fed's balance sheet to bail out the federal government, which is basically what's happening now, because the government is issuing all of these treasuries and the Fed is buying them, so interest rates don't go up short term. So why does that bail out the government? Because the government has to roll over, call it 10, 11 trillion dollars in debt per year. Probably not higher now because we've added an additional 5 trillion in debt. So they have to roll over all of these trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Well, that's at an average of, call it 1.52%. If they allowed interest rates to go up, it would completely crush the government. They just could not afford it. So Schiff's point is the Fed's balance sheet is bailing out the government, which is pretty clear. And at what point do we not just move to the Fed's balance sheet bailing out the states? And this is a great example. So if we just do MMT for the people from the standpoint of checks, stimulus checks just going out to everyone, if we're basically doing MMT bailout UBI for the federal government, why aren't we going to do it for the states? At some point, why on earth is anyone even working? Like, why don't we all just stay home and have the Fed just send every single person money, have the Fed just create money for the federal government, and have the Fed just create all the money that the states spend? That should be bullish for the dollar. Hopefully you can sense my sarcasm there. And I don't want to say the dollar is going down. It could do anything in the next year. I think Jeff Snyder and Brent Johnson are a lot smarter than I am, and I totally get and respect their views for the dollar getting stronger. I think it definitely can. But over the long term, I mean, 5-10 years, when you see stuff like this, I don't think there's any direction the dollar can go but down. And let me clarify, not necessarily against other currencies. Dollar could go up against the euro or the yen. I'm talking about the dollar going down compared to consumer prices in the domestic United States. So the prices of the stuff you buy every single day, I just don't see how that doesn't go up. And over the next 3-5 years, I don't see how it doesn't go up dramatically. At the same time, the dollar could increase in value against the euro or the yen. Who knows? But so my point here is to go back to Schiff's podcast and highlight his really incredible insight that he had, and that we're trying to bail out people. We're definitely bailing out the federal government. And at what point do we start bailing out the states? We, meaning the Fed's balance sheet, creating bank reserves to bail them out. And if we do, then why wouldn't the states just start spending like drunken sailors? Because who cares about a budget anymore when the Fed can just print the money for us to spend? We can spend limitless. There are no restrictions on our spending. Think about how dangerous that is if this mindset really catches on, especially with politicians that are admitting to you they're buying your votes. So think about that. Okay, we've got politicians that are willingly and admittingly buying your votes, giving them a money printer. Yeah, what can go wrong there? I mean, you want to talk about an insane misallocation of resources and malinvestment that is going to wildly distort the economy and make an eventual crash 1,000 times worse. I mean, that's a recipe for it right there. Investors like the prospects of more stimulus. Of course they do, because just like that gal on TikTok that I highlighted on my video the other day that I got from my good buddy Grant Williams' Twitter feed, people are going to take the stimmies. They're going to take their stimmy checks and go right into the market and buy whatever stocks have just gone up the most in the past. Because I don't want to be hard on the millennials and the young people, but they just see that as their opportunity to get rich. They're playing with the house's money. So why not take your stimmy check and go bet on the most recent fad with altcoins, or with Hertz, or the next SPAC? It's just completely insane. Anyway, the highest level of taxes for corporate. So they're saying that it's kind of a mixed bag here with investors, because although they see stimulus boosting stock prices for the reasons we talked about, it most likely will lead to higher taxes. So higher corporate taxes, capital gains tax, and higher earners will move higher. But there will be fiscal expansionary policies, which, let's remember, when you increase the tax rates, very rarely do they correlate with higher tax revenues. That's just a misconception. So the government will think that, oh, hey, we're increasing the tax rate on high income earners to 40%. Therefore, we can spend more money. But what happens is they get the same amount of money in tax receipts. They spend more money. What happens? They just blow out the deficit even further than it was already blown out. Of course. And then we've got these tweets from, I won't say anything disparaging, but from, we'll call them the legends. Hello, it's a new day. Who's ready for a push? And of course, she has to use emojis of all different color people. Just the pandering makes me want to vomit. Ready to push for retroactive Cerveza relief. What does that even mean? Retroactive? So we're going to go back prior to Cerveza and okay, I guess. And push for student loan cancellation. And by the way, if you're paying off your student debt right now, don't. Make the minimum payments, of course. I'm not saying that. Make the minimum payments. But if it were me, I would only make the minimum payment, because you wouldn't want to go ahead and pay that sucker off, and 6 months from now, AOC and the old brew crew come in and just cancel it, and you feel like a big dummy for paying it off. Hashtag moral hazard. For climate justice, healthcare, voting rights, ending the death penalty. What policies do you most want to push for? What are the chances people are saying more stimulus checks? And this is, I thought, where I start to push or poke fun here at Vox, but it really paints the picture. In the meantime, fear of the Cerveza sickness keeps some people at home and hurts businesses. Really? Is it the fear of it, or is it the government telling businesses that they're not allowed to open? Or telling restaurants that they can only take on a 10% capacity or whatever. I like how the shift of blame is completely removed from the government and their decision-making process. Many economists have argued that it's essential to get people and businesses help to keep them afloat. Is it essential to give them help, or is it essential to allow the economy to function again? Last paragraph. Again, the Democrats' margin is super narrow, and moderates are unlikely to get on board with most ambitious progressive ideas on the economy. But cash stimulus is much likelier now than it was earlier this week. I think that's the main macro takeaway here. And that is good news for millions of Americans. And I would just like to remind the people at Vox that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.